Hello, everybody. This is Tata Communications and Pexip. We are hosting a joint webinar for our customers out here today. I'm Ashfaaq Poonawala from Tata Communications. I'm the lead product manager for the Americas and the EMEA region.
And how you doing? I'm Jorden Owens with Pexip. I'm responsible for all things technology here in the Americas. And Ash, look forward to the next few minutes with you. So I'll let you kick it off.
So I wanted to share a story with you. 15 years ago, back around in 2006, I was working with a company, 2006, 2007. I was working with a company and we had to do a presentation with our customers. And for that, they had arranged a Cisco telepresence life-size unit, and we didn't have it. So we had to rent some at one of our centers, and a team of 5 folks, we went up there, did a presentation, and I was like, this is really cool. But nobody else could join it except the guys who had it. Fast forward it like 15 years back, now into 2021. I'm sitting in front of my screen. I have I have a room studio kit. I have what I'm speaking with is in a camera and on a Teams platform, and I could connect with anybody across the world. So the landscape has changed, and how are we driving video, especially the video in this hybrid timeframes, is what we want to present today. So I want to leave you with three things as takeaways. The first we'll talk about is what is the digital landscape that we see from our customers' standpoint. How are the customers responding to the video demand at their firms, and what do we see as Pexip and Tata across the different customers that we serve? And when we see that, what do we infer that what are the key drivers for the video estate, especially on the hybrid side where it demands a bunch of interoperability, different requirements for support, and different needs across the customers. And finally, when you partner with Tata Communications, it's not just like we support your end state for the video, but there's a lot more that goes inside that. So we'll take a look at all of those components as we go through this particular session. So I'll tell you about one of our customers, a success story about our customers. And it was a customer that came back to us to talk about their telephony estate. And they said that, we have a legacy platform and we have decided on Microsoft Teams as a platform. And we need to migrate to that. And how can you help us along the way? And as we started migrating them along the way, we learned that in due course, employee engagement was dropping down. And one of the reason was video. They had more than 700 rooms of legacy video estate. And whenever the users joined for a meeting, they would go in the rooms, they would open up the laptop connected to their video room systems, what they had. The folks in the room could project particularly to that screen. The remote folks, they could barely hear the folks in the room, let alone see what is being shared. And that experience, I'm sure that you all can relate to. And that's exactly what happened with some of our customers, especially this customer. So this landscape is very common and it does exist. And a lot of our customers see that that drops the employee productivity. We understand the pain points. It's a video system that you have invested in. You just cannot let it go. It does not drive employee productivity. At the end of it, no matter what you invest in, those tools are not going to get utilized. So how do we enable this particular landscape? How do we migrate the customers from video to hybrid videos that they can use the tools that are there in collaboration, particularly on the Microsoft Teams side? So that's the key that we have to understand. And that's the landscape that has changed entirely from what it was a few years ago. So how do the key drivers stack up against such customers? Typically, what we see with our customers is they have multiple room system kits and that sit along. And at that point of time, they purchase the best of the breed systems that set well for their huddle room to like boardrooms to regular meeting rooms. And they all have different maintenance costs. They all have different support systems that they need to drive for. And that adds up because the new guy who comes or takes over the IT will have to account for all of that. There is no streamlining of that. There's nothing that binds them together that, can use one Teams client and that across all the devices. There's complexity associated with managing all of those devices. One system does not talk to the other, and at the end of the day you are wondering what's really happening. Why can I not connect with one of my Zoom rooms to my Cisco, to my Teams, or to OEM device independent Crestron, Logitech, Poly, Microsoft devices, Cisco devices? It's a mixed bag that the number of permutations, combinations that you deal with add up, and they're immense. It's a complex associated environment managing multiple vendors. And clearly, if you have invested in a high video room system, to let go of it just because your other technology has changed does not make any sense. You have to sweat those devices. And it creates a challenge to achieve the end state that you're looking for, especially what you want a unified communications that your users come in, adopt, and they can drive the meetings when they enter into the room systems. And with the new normal, I have myself a desktop pro from Cisco. I do have a Teams room system kit that could be on the way. And I need a way to combine all of those together. A lot of folks end up using room systems even in their homes, and the new offices that come up with the new infrastructures that stack up, it's difficult if we end up choosing just one solution that fits all. It does not work for all the customers. So Jorden, I'm wondering if you can help us understand what are the technical pieces that combine all of these together, and how does Pexip help address a lot of those?
Yeah, absolutely, Ash. And I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? I mean, the reality is that as we migrate ourselves back into the office, as we move forward in this new normal or this new way of working, or insert whatever you want to call it here, the conversation around how do we ultimately tie all of these different solutions together is at the forefront, right? I mean, we all throughout this pandemic have all really moved into a video first type of a mantra. And as we move back, the reality that our organization has 2, 3, 4, 10 different meeting solutions is at the forefront of our minds. And we know that those video solutions don't work together. We know that those environments don't communicate together. We know that they don't natively speak to each other, speak the same language. And how do we go about bringing those all together into a single meeting, into a single platform, so the complexity isn't borne by the user? In other words, how do we put the right system in place that figures it out? And that's what Pexip is really here to do. This is why we were founded 10 years ago, and why we exist is because the idea around Pexip and what we do is how do we abstract all of the complexity? How do we remove all of the technicalities from the user's mindset, put them into the infrastructure, and make it all just work? So when we look at this from a Microsoft Teams centric environment, the idea here is that it is truly a Microsoft Teams meeting. I schedule a meeting the way that I would normally schedule a meeting, whether it's in Outlook, whether it's in Teams itself. I want to invite the people that I want to join into that meeting. I want to invite the rooms that I want to participate within that meeting. And then when I go to join that meeting, I can simply one touch join that room, whether that room is a Cisco endpoint, Ash, to your point, right on, we're using room kits or whatever the case may be, or whether it's a Microsoft Teams room. It doesn't really matter. The whole point is that I walk into the room, I press that single button, and now all of a sudden I'm into that meeting. What everybody else is using is completely irrelevant to me. It doesn't matter, nor should it matter, right? The whole point of this is that I just join right into that room. It's still a Microsoft Teams centric meeting, right? It's still being held inside Teams. It's still adopting my Teams access rights. It's still adopting my Teams security rights. It's still, my Teams users are still getting all of the value that they want out of Teams. What we've done is we've extended access into video conferencing systems through the Pexip interoperability solution. Now, the technical term for this interoperability solution is CVI, or Cloud Video Interop. But don't worry about the details behind that, right? The whole point of it is, how do we get all of these meetings to just join into a Microsoft Teams meeting at the Microsoft Teams core without having to worry about the complexity of how it works or how it operates or anything along those lines? We've removed that complexity for you so that all you as a user do is focus on getting into the meeting and actually interacting within that meeting, having that video first experience that you would expect to see. Now, the other key thing to this, right, that is truly core to who we are and how we operate is this idea around security and data privacy. we check all of the check boxes that you would expect to see, right? We're GDPR compliant, we're ISO 27001 certified, we have SOC 2 compliant certified data centers. I mean, all of those key things are truly who Pexip is. For those of you that are in a little bit more of the vertical focus, right? We're FIPS 140-2 compliant. We're JITC certified, which is important for the government side of things. We're HIPAA compliant when you look at the medical side of things. But is any one of these individual things truly in and of itself the most important part? No. What's really important inside of this conversation is the commitment that we have to marching along this journey with you. Because the reality is that security isn't a destination, it's a path, right? How do we march through this with you and work within your mindset, work within your requirements, work within your regulations so that we can truly adopt video that's appropriate for your individual environment. Now let's take this a step further, right? Let's look at how do we ultimately achieve this capability? And it's through a number of different mindsets. But the reality around this, right? The key part about this to you is that we will work within your world. We aren't trying to come in and change the way that you communicate. We aren't trying to come in and redo the way that you run meeting invitations. We aren't trying to change anything about the way that you or your users operate. The key part to this is we want to embrace what you already do and bring new and advanced capability to that. And through that meeting interoperability service, that CVI capability that we just talked about, that's exactly the first point that we want to bring up here, right? You schedule your team's meeting, you join your team's meeting, and we allow those Cisco, those Polycom, those LifeSize, those other video conferencing systems to join in. That gives you the ability to use the assets that you've already leveraged within your organization, and it gives you the ability to deploy the right room for the right situation in the right environment as you move forward. But taking that a step further, we also have full infrastructure capabilities that allows you to retire some of those legacy video conferencing systems, those firewall traversal solutions, those call control solutions that you've been using that are aging and are really starting to reach the end of their life. You can now move into more of a modernized call control platform that we allow those systems to continue to operate the way that you would expect them to as they continue to proliferate within your organization. We also offer additional capabilities that might be interesting for a much deeper conversation around B2C and meetings. That's not the focus of today, so I won't belabor that point, really draw this out, but I do think that it's important to bring those up. Now, when you look at this from an infrastructure perspective, right? So we talked about the application layer. We talked about how do we allow all of these systems to connect. Let's boil this down into the infrastructure standpoint on how does this solution itself actually run. The really cool thing about our solution here at Pexip is that we, again, work the way that you do. We run this system as a completely cloud-hosted solution. So if you just want to check the simple checkbox and say, you know what, Pexip, you figure it out, you run it, you worry about redundancy, you worry about the global footprint, it's there. And we deliver it. And we have the capability that's already there for you. If, on the other hand, you say, you know what, no, I have very specific requirements. I have security requirements or I have regulatory requirements, or maybe I just want to use my existing infrastructure, whether it's on-premises infrastructure or whether it's running inside of your own cloud environment in Microsoft Azure or AWS or Google Cloud. We can embrace those environments too and give you the flexibility to have that capability inside of those. Or maybe the third option, which is, you don't really want to run your own, you want it to be dedicated to you, but you don't want to run it. You don't want to operate it. You want us to do that for you. We have a private cloud option as well that gives you this capability for you to have a single tenanted environment that is dedicated to you, dedicated to your organization, embraces the way that you want to work, but you just don't have to worry about all the complexity or all the infrastructure needed to do that. We can run a private cloud entirely for you. The whole point of all of this is just to simply say that you get the ability to take the application layer features you want and decide how you want to run them. Those two things work in conjunction with each other. They work together. They partner together. That gives you the true freedom to decide not only what you want to do, but how you want to do it. Because again, we want to work with you. We want to partner with you and embrace the way that you want to do business, not take that over for you. And now one of the really cool things that Ash, I'll flip this over to you in just a second, right? But one of the really cool things about the Pexip and the Tata conversation is that we take this beyond just the application layer, beyond just the technology, and embrace the whole customer environment as well, right? So the key thing to this is, how do we now work with you to we're not just simply pushing a product or selling a product or saying, hey, look, here it is. Good luck, Godspeed, go figure it out for yourself. We want to work with you to figure out, how do we roll this out within your environment? How do we support this within your own end users? How do we drive usage and adoption? And Ash, I know this is really where Tata shines in the services mindset and some of the capabilities you bring to the table. So why don't you go ahead and walk us through some of those capabilities? Because I think it's truly a differentiator.
Sure. I mean, you can take a read at all these 9 capabilities, but what I want to leave you with is, at the end of the day, what a customer wants is cost savings and the control of the environment that you want, not what the OEMs want. And that's a very powerful thing. You can achieve the cost savings and the complete control of the environment, and we allow you to do that. And that's not only just restricting to this video environment. Jorden did give you a bunch of capabilities that you could do that would tailor your environment. And even if you're a large customer with 250,000 seats, you would have divisions within the environment that they need charge. And Pexip and Tata do allow you to do that. So the biggest takeaway is we are a single point of accountability for your entire video estate. And I have a customer in a financial services organization, and they not only just need the video, but because where they're situated geographically, they also require to have network to support that video in order to provide quality of voice and video. And we do have voice and video and network as a single play within this organization. So end-to-end support, end-to-end regulations that we are accustomed to at a global level, including the complicated geographies of India, China, where does data reside, where does data need to go to, what is compliant, is all provided as a very consultative approach to you as an organization, which benefits out of this, which has a safe and a sane environment with a very high availability uptime. And not only that, but I would ask Jorden to tell you that once you provide this environment, what it means to you. Like, how does it future-proof your environment? How does it simplify your current estate? And take it forward. How does it give you the upper hand against your competition?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Ash. I mean, we really look at it from the perspective of giving you, the organization, the freedom to decide how you want to work. Because the reality is, if the pandemic has taught us nothing else, it has taught us that the reality of today is not necessarily the reality of tomorrow. Anything and everything can change in a moment's notice. And you really do need to think about future-proofing your organization. Maybe today you're all in on this solution, or you're all in on that solution, or you really want to center all of your conference rooms around this device or that device or this management system or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, you also have to recognize, and it's key to recognize, that may change in a moment's notice. And something else, the new greatest thing may come out tomorrow, and you need to make sure that you're positioning yourself to be able to adjust and adapt as the environment changes. And that's exactly what Pexip brings to the table from a technology standpoint, is the ability to embrace new, growing, and expanding technologies. Whether you look at it from a B2C approach, and how do we allow people outside of your organization to easily get into a meeting from something as simple as a web browser, whether you look at it from a B2B approach, and how do you allow partnered organizations to get into your environment, or whether you want to expand that scope and really look at it from a security approach on how do we allow people within your environment to join into meetings in a completely frictionless environment, while people outside have to go through an extra level of check, an extra level of validation when they get into a meeting. How do we provide all of that capability and allow you to pivot it on a moment's notice? And then from a services standpoint, Ash, to your exact point, the whole Tata and Pexip partnership really give you that single throat to choke, but at the same time, give you the ability to think ahead of the game, to play chess, not checkers, so that you can think 2, 3, 4, 10 moves ahead on how do you want to repivot things. How do I want to leverage? Maybe I want to leverage Cisco over here for that, Polycom over here for that, Microsoft over here for that, and I want to be able to adapt and adjust on the fly. We can help, and we can consult together with Tata to help you figure out what technology, what solutions, and what services will ultimately position you to take that forward.
Great. And the last portion that I want to leave you, and we touched a little bit upon that, was an end-to-end migration, right from exploration to the transformation. We are there with you. If you do not even have assessed your environment, we do have the capabilities, the automated tools to deploy that. We have the way to make it work and show you, like with the production pilot. But where we shine is when we integrate and migrate. And at the same time, we have metrics to measure the adoption, which creates not only an environment where you have success stories to share, not only within the organization, but outside the organization. And that's where the whole partnership, the whole gamut of services is what comes under one roof with this partnership together. Jorden, you want to expand a little bit more on how do we go with the integration and the migration phase of this too?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ash, or great point, Ash, because to your point is this is a journey, not a destination, right? And we need to make sure that we think about everything in that concept. And, it always starts with, okay, let's understand where we sit today and let's understand our destination. And that's one of the key points that we always do take a step back and understand with our customers is not just, how do we get these products deployed? How do we get these products integrated? How do we make sure that your users have that flexibility? But really to sit down and to look at it from an entirety perspective on what is your desired end state and how do we help set you up so that you can continue to march down to that end state? And then how do we come back and reassess and reintegrate and re-migrate, if you will, as we then redo this whole life cycle transformation conversation over and over again. When you look at it in terms of a migration perspective, right, a lot of organizations have 2, 3, 4 meeting solutions that they're using today, and they want to consolidate out around one. Microsoft Teams. Let's use that as a perfect example in this conversation. Today I have Cisco and I have Polycom and I have Microsoft and I have insert your fourth player here, whomever that may be. And we work with our customers to consolidate all of those different meeting solutions around one. But yet again, we reduce the complexity around the end user. They get the ability to join into that meeting from wherever they want. And we work with our customers to show them how that process works and how that transformation works. So they can focus purely on the organizational side of this, the adoption side of this, if you will, rather than the technical side of this. We take that technical complexity off of their back so that they have the ability to think about the user aspect of it. And then how do we train? How do we show? How do we create champions of the new solution within the organization so they can organically advertise that out within the organization? How do we then gather their feedback and receive that feedback and put that right back into this whole life cycle approach so that we can continue to adjust, continue to modify the solution as we go forward? And that's exactly what we do within our customers. And so when you look at it purely from an integration standpoint, that's very technical, right? How do we get these systems to talk together? That's what we do every day. When we look at it from a migration standpoint, that's now the beginning of the conversation on, okay, how do we transform this, or how do we transition this, I should say, from a technical conversation to a people conversation, which then allows us as a combined partnered entity to then start focusing purely on the users for adoption and transformation. And then again, gathering that feedback and plumbing that all the way back into this life cycle and starting over. So great point, Ash, and appreciate you giving me the opportunity to build on that.
Sure, great. And that's the end of our webinar. And we really appreciate you taking time to go over this. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can find us on LinkedIn, or you can connect with your account manager who would connect to us. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.